Our second speaker is Peter Briffett. Peter is UK GM of Living Social. He had the wisdom and genius to deprive Microsoft of some of those dollars I was mentioning earlier when he sold his previous business to Microsoft. He's a serial entrepreneur, and he's going to talk about Living Social. Peter.
Do I need this? Probably not. Innovate or Die, that's a bit of a harsh title for a Tuesday morning, but just give you a bit of background on me. I'm Peter Briffett, I'm the MD of Living Social in the UK, and I'll go into a bit of what Living Social does and how we've sort of evolved over the last couple of years. But my background, literally, I've always been in technology, absolutely love technology, love innovating. Sold a company to Microsoft. We had a tech company in Battersea. Easy to sell companies to Microsoft in terms of innovation. But as a result of that, because they don't like to innovate right now, but as a result of that, we actually got the best post-acquisition metrics in Microsoft history because we managed to keep it outside of the mothership for a while. And obviously, ultimately, I had to relocate everyone to Redmond. Innovation stopped as a result thereafter. But it's a great thing right now in the with the internet and with certainly social networks and what I'm doing right now with social networks. I know the ability to innovate around these platforms is absolutely huge. I mean, I've got two young boys. I know they're going to, when they get older, they'll say, Daddy, you're at the forefront of that social commerce revolution. Why aren't we richer? Why don't you make more money? I say, I'm trying. But the point is, right now with these networks, and we found a way at Living Social to engage an audience and drive and actually monetize some of that, and very much at the early beginning stages, I might add. But it's important to see, with friends talking to friends and people, the ability for ideas to be shared very quickly. It's a very exciting time in terms of what can be achieved and how you can market your product, your brand through these networks. And to give you a bit of an idea about how it works for us and how the business Living Social started. It's a very young company. It was only founded 3 or 4 years ago, and started with an innovation. Started with 2 or 3 guys got together and trying to figure out how they can acquire new customers through these emerging social networks that were starting to happen. And they came up with a product called Pick 5, which very simply allows you to rate 5 favourite books, 5 favourite films, 5 favourite restaurants. And they threw it out on Facebook primarily and sold the advertising around the side of it. And the first couple of weeks, made a couple of $1,000s. They thought this is interesting. Third week, it made $1 million. 98 million people use the app. It's still one of the top 3 apps of all time. So just the power of what's available right now to spread an idea, spread a word is phenomenal. I don't think there's a better time in my life where that's been available. And simply because what we're doing now with Living Social, which is sort of group buying, we're promoting local businesses through social networks, and we're able to do that. We're powered essentially by the viral spread of ideas. Visual Bookshelf was another product we came out with. Again, that's something that allows you to review books, and when it was trending in the first couple of months, had more reviews than Amazon. So they were utilizing social networks to come up with ideas to acquire new customers. And that takes us all the way to what we're doing today. And this is an example of a deal we ran with Marks and Spencer's a couple of weeks ago. We sold 30,000 vouchers for Marks and Spencer's in 3 or 4 hours. That's driven 30,000 new customers or existing customers to Marks and Spencer's in a very, very short space of time. And the business for me, I was called out by an investor a couple of years ago to go out and see these guys out. They're doing something cool in DC, and I went out there, and their view was this is the future of local marketing, local commerce. And if you think the way the web's structured now, and if you're going to search for something, the default answer is primarily probably do that on Google. If you're going to buy something, the default answer for that may be Amazon, but on the local element, there's no real default answer right now, and that's the space we want, and that's the market we're in. And for us, this is the future of local advertising to a very large extent. No one can promise, any other advertising model can promise new customers can walk through premises, and we can guarantee businesses that will give them that. So it's come from me. I joined, it was about 60 people. This was 2 years ago. It's now 5,000. We've got 60 million members. We're in 5 of the 6 continents in 20 countries around the world. So it's grown incredibly quickly, and it's grown. I'm not pretending we're all very clever, but it's grown on the back of social networks. We're able to do what we do today because and promote businesses in the way we promote businesses simply because people are all online, people are sharing ideas, and it enables us to do things. Daily deals is one aspect of what we do. We also have our travel vertical now, which is escapes. We have adventures. It's where we piece together. Different businesses. We'll put them together, whether it's bungee jumping off Tower Bridge and beer tasting or whatever else it may be. And bear in mind, this is social. So we have to, our deals work, our promotions work if people share them, if people talk about them. So we're very conscious of that. So daily we have to innovate in terms of how we drive those ideas through and how we drive those promotions through. So it's got to be something new, it's got to be something exciting. Last week we did zombie chasing downtown. I mean, we didn't know how that was going to go, but it actually went very well. But these are things we have to figure out. We do, and we also know, because it's a web business, you get all the metrics are fed back into the beast, and we get clever about how things work. We know how to price sushi in the UK, in London, in Pacific verticals. We know what price, if you could do Pilates, but you do a form of Pilates at 5 locations, just made another 100,000. If you do yoga, but hot yoga, Bikram yoga, all that sort of thing. So we know that the only place you can sell tattoo removal is Portland, Oregon. I have no idea why. But these things the promotions we do, and this is the hard part of our business, is making sure we're innovating every day around the types of ideas and the types of things we're doing. And when we push those deals out, we push those promotions out, we find out quite a lot about things. And we also make sure that we're obviously promoting to different verticals in terms of families and gourmet, which is our sort of high-end foodie brand that we're just about to launch. But what I wanted to talk about today more than anything was Instant. This is something, we've figured out, certainly from a mobile perspective, and we know, and you guys, I'm sure, you wake up in the morning, and a lot of people, before they speak to their wife or husband or girlfriend, boyfriend, they'll look at their mobile device and they'll check their emails and see what's going on. So we know for a fact that we're seeing, from when I joined Living Social to today, we've gone from about 2 or 3% of people interacting with us on a mobile to about 24%. So that's grown incredibly quickly, and we know the future of what we're doing will be around some sort of social mobile application. And what we figured out pretty quick is how to make money out of social networks. We haven't figured out, but we know we're at the beginning stages of how the model works and how we're actually promoting those businesses. But mobile is something we're just launching it in London this week, actually. We've got 600 businesses in London signed up, and you literally can walk around Covent Garden, click on your phone, it will show you a map of all the locations. You can go, right, I want to buy a burger, or I want to go and get my hair cut, I want to go and get my nails done, or whatever. You can click on that, and instantly you can walk into those premises, and you can redeem that voucher immediately. You can be sat down in 2 minutes, sort of eating lunch or whatever else you want to be doing, or going to see a movie or something like that. The trouble is with this, we had to innovate quite hard around how we figured out that transaction loop. So we've had to go and give iPads out to 500 merchants in London, because there was no other way of them redeeming those vouchers. So, and that's expensive innovation and annoying, really, because there's no other way of us figuring it out. But and I don't know if that's scalable, quite frankly, but it's something that we're pushing the boundaries of the business. And I've worked for quite a few tech companies, some of which are really struggle to innovate, some of which are very good at innovating. And I think from where we are at Living Social, and because we're still in the sort of young startup phase almost, it's still, our ability to innovate is definitely there. But of this still, I can see more processes coming in, and it's even harder to do what we're trying to do last year to do today, but we're definitely pushing out on mobile, so we're strong on that. And we're also asked to say, give an example of a business that I think is really innovating in this social area. And I think, not just because Omid's here today, I think Omid's here from Foursquare, but I think Foursquare has done a fantastic job of figuring out the gamification of how, and how people engage with. And that's what we haven't done well as Living Social. We figured out how to sell stuff and how to promote businesses, but we haven't figured out how to get things sticking and how to get people to come back to us. And I think Foursquare's done a great job. I mean, who knew that people wanted to check in, get badges, and get recognised with their friends? And that sort of solo mode, that social local mobile piece has been done very well by Foursquare. And there's a serious side of social commerce. You have to engage an audience. That's hard work, but once you've done that, there's a huge potential in terms of brand exposure and in terms of marketing. And for us, and we realise that even now as a business that to promote ourselves on mobile and to move into mobile is a completely different, it's not an extension of a web strategy. It's not like, I'm on the internet, here's my mobile, here's our internet, here's my sort of website on your mobile. It's a completely different strategy, and it requires a different way of looking at the business. We currently, for instance, in our business, we push out promotions daily through email. Mobile isn't like that. People have to come back to us. You have to make things sticky. You have to make things engaging. And we haven't got all the answers for that. For us, if I think it's like, we've got the commerce bit sorted out. You've got Foursquare, which has got the engagement. You've got Yelp, or, for the review side. So it's a mixture of those that I think will, in the next 2 or 3 years, someone's going to figure it out. And someone's going to and someone will lead that space in terms of, that whole social, local and commerce element, because it's huge. And if you can attract, people walking past your business to come in, or you can get them to change their behavior based on something you've done through their mobile device. There's going to be a lot of innovations around there. So we're keen on looking at that space for sure. And just a parting note, it's not just about great ideas in organisations. It's about having, for me, when you're looking at how to innovate in a business, it's about that has to come from the top, essentially. The founder or the CEO, or it has to be sponsored from the top, and that has to be a culture that's driven through the business. And a lot of businesses, it's very difficult to innovate. All businesses initially innovated. They came up with an idea at their inception, but then obviously that idea is normally, if I take Microsoft as an example, it's difficult to innovate there. They've come up with core product, the platform, and not an office, and that's the money, that's the beast. And it's, for them to go into a new business, they say, well, I need it's got to be $500 million business before we even look at it, and that sort of stifles innovation slightly if you're in the organisation. So it's about having the culturally and Google's obviously very good at that. YouTube, having that culture where innovation is allowed to flourish, and that's certainly not easy, certainly when the money's coming from other areas and core parts of the business. But that's me, and that's it.
Thank you, Peter. Perhaps that's something we can come back to when we get to the discussion, is the difference between a very large company like Google and a very large company like Microsoft, and why one seems to still have momentum and innovation, and the other, we hear from someone who's well placed to know, struggles with that. Our third speaker comes from a company which made an incredibly profound innovation in the 20th century, which actually changed the way everybody consumes the products that they sell. Anna Rafferty is leading that company's innovation drive in the 21st century. She is a pillar of the digital community in London and a member of the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences. She's responsible for all of Penguin's digital activities, but her biggest achievement last year was she gave birth. And she was telling me that she's taught her son, who's now 9 months old, to applaud, so that she knows she's always going to have one person applauding her actions. But will you please give it up for Anna Rafferty?
That's absolutely true. If you have a baby, I would prioritise teaching them to clap, because it's just such a joy to walk in and feel really appreciated. So I'm going to probably not get this right either. Is it the arrow? Yeah. Hey, great. So I'm Anna Rafferty. I am the Managing Director of Penguin Digital, which is a division of Penguin Books. And Penguin, I think that's very interesting that you said that every company was born out of innovation. Of course, that's true. And I suppose that at Penguin, we also think to ourselves, we're absolutely born out of innovation, not necessarily invention, because Alan Lane, the founder of Penguin, came up with the idea about repackaging content in books that had previously only been available really as very expensive hardbacks, hardcover books that were out of the price range of the ordinary person, essentially, to buy and read. So if you didn't have very much money, you had to go and buy either something that was produced with terrible quality kind of jacket design and print, and even the content itself probably wouldn't have been very good and very disposable. Or you had to spend loads of cash, or you just had to read magazines, or you just didn't read. So he invented the paperback. Or brought the paperback appropriately to market. And essentially it was about democratizing good writing and good design, and that's what's always been at the heart of Penguin. And he made paperbacks the same price as a packet of fags. And I think now that our books are actually significantly cheaper generally than a packet of cigarettes. So hooray. And I think that it's interesting that yes, there was a significant innovation in 1935 when Penguin was born. But actually, and certainly my everyday life is all about kind of continuing to ensure, the thing is that readers are never going to go away. So we've got lots and lots of readers, and we've got loads and loads of authors who write amazing books, and we've got editors who know how to put all of that together. So we're just going to make sure that in this new world of finding and reading with using different kind of technology as well as the paperback, that we're still there and making sure that our readers are finding our books. But also, part of our DNA is, and part of every publisher's DNA, I would suggest, is the gamble. So what we do, there's a whole value chain of publishing, but it starts with kind of selection. and curation. And what we pay our editors for really is finding something that's good, and taking something that might just be the germ of a good idea, or a writer that you kind of like a bit of the style of, and you've read a little bit of, or you've met someone and you think that's interesting, and nurturing that and making that into something that's a product. And actually, it might not even be the first book, it might be the third book. And we have acquisition meetings where editors sit there and go, this isn't the book, but his next book is going to be, and actually then that happens. But essentially we're used to investing money in building something, in an idea, in then kind of taking a gamble, basically. And we know that not everything, we don't sit there and go, is it the £500 million book? Because that doesn't ever happen. And there are lots of books that never make us any money, but we know that they're never going to make us any money, but we think that they're important to publish and to develop. So that's a good place for me to work, because it does mean, I think, that there's a culture of, I should have done that first. There's a culture of kind of, the aptitude for exploration, I suppose, and an appetite for investment. So we're really used to taking a gamble on a book. So it hasn't been a massive leap for the company to take gambles on technology and new types of marketing. And certainly design as well. We're lucky enough to be part of Pearson, whose core values are decent, innovative and brave, or decent, imaginative and brave. And so literally part of the kind of the structure of the business is there's things like innovation funds where we can go in a Dragon's Den scenario, pitch to Marjorie Scardino and say, I've got a really good idea, what do you think? And so far, Penguin has done really quite well with getting bits of money from that to go in and investigate. But again, you've got that permission, it's part of, it's something that happens every day. We talk about acquisition, but you can go to kind of mum and dad in Pearson and say, we actually need a bit more money this time to try something completely new. Please trust us. And that's allowed. So Penguin does all of this, and it does, this is my house and my bookshelves, and not all of them are penguins, but actually most of them are penguins. So all of that I'm sure you're familiar with. But we also recently have been doing all sorts of other different things. And so, for example, we did something called We Tell Stories, which was actually 2008 now, which is extraordinary that it was 4 years ago. And that was a kind of an experiment in digital native storytelling. So We Tell Stories was all about, getting 6 authors to write stories that could only exist using different digital storytelling tools. So this is Charles Cummings, who's a kind of spy writer. He did something that was based on 39 steps, so we tied it to classics, but it was new fiction, and he told it through Google Maps. So we're using that API. We also did kind of live writing. We told, Toby Litt did a story told through kind of Twitter and blog feeds. Hisham Attar did this amazing kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like a visual infographic, choose your own adventure, where it doesn't matter where you started in the story and what path you took, the plot would always work out ultimately to be the same story, but from different perspectives. It was really genius. He's unbelievably clever. We also do things like this. So this is what we did, I think, last year now, because I've been on maternity leave. This is my 10th day back from maternity leave, so I'm a bit out of time. Actually, it was the year before, wasn't it? It was the end of 2010, yes. So this is My Fry. So this is a different kind of experiment in storytelling. This is not fiction, which was interesting for us as well, because actually I think that you can kind of go a bit crazier sometimes with fiction, and we were thinking, well, non-fiction is a harder thing to think about, to depict in a different, interesting way. Obviously, given who the author is, we wanted to do something that was stunningly different, I suppose. And what we did was create essentially kind of a data visualization of a biography. So we cut up Stephen Fry's biography, we tagged it according to themes. So the theme could be Hugh Laurie, or it could be Cambridge, or it could be self-loathing. And we color-coded them, and then we put them into this kind of flower of petals, and that you kind of navigated touching the screen and going through it, and then you could say, actually, I only want to read everything to do with comedy. And basically, you cut up a linear narrative into non-linear chunks, and you read it as you wanted to read it. And at the point was, you're on the tube, and you've only got 5 minutes, and I just want to read that bit about Ben Elton. And now I just want to read all the things about Ben Elton, because they're quite funny. And that did quite well. And then this is the most recent thing. This is in the last few months. So this is called The Land of Me. And The Land of Me is a children's, and it's a completely, or certainly a digital first piece of IP. So this is not a conversion. This is not a book that we've turned into something else. This is a piece of storytelling that only exists at the moment. It started off being actually I mean, I still want to call them apps, but, you know, something that you buy on a website and download to your desktop. But now it's actually an iPad app. And it's about the shared reading experience between preschool kids who obviously can't read and their parents and a picture book. So when you read a picture book with a baby, you sit there and the baby sits on your lap and you kind of go through it and they touch, you know, the tiny little ladybird in the corner and they want to scratch it and they follow it through the pages or whatever, and they're not necessarily actually the core plot. And then they want you to read it again and again, and they start fixating on a particular bit of it, and then you start inventing bits and doing voices for the characters and all those kind of things. And actually, it's just a shared experience. So this is about that shared experience of reading a picture book with a baby, but digitally. You can go into the world of The Land of Me and you can create your own monsters or your own environment, and the characters tell you stories, and it's just kind of charming and beautiful, and it's something that can only exist in this environment. And my next slide this is my alibi. This is basically I really do belong here, which sounds very apologetic, but I think sometimes everyone thinks, oh, Penguin Books, don't you just do classics? And this is, I guess, the summary of what I've been saying is that, you know, Penguin has always been about taking a gamble and doing something new and putting our money where our mouth is, and that's what you get employed for, actually. And the big challenge for the publishing industry at the moment that I'm really pleased that I work in Penguin is around digital technology and digital storytelling, which Penguin is really obviously focusing on and doing really well. That was it. And it's not that I don't think that other companies do very exciting, innovative things, but when I was asked to put an example that somebody else has done, I get filled with fear because I've done this before at conferences, and I've talked about a company who was then in the room, and because I'm opinionated and because I talk fast and I forget what I'm saying, then I've said things that ended up having awkward conversations around the back later. So I decided I wouldn't, but rather than put it on the screen, I'll tell you about a company that I think is doing lots of ones. So firstly, Harlequin Mills and Boon does really interesting things with ebook subscriptions, which is very, very interesting. They're completely commoditized their reading. Because people who read their books don't necessarily care about their authors, because that's not what they're reading it for. They're not reading it because it's the next whoever. They're reading it for another reason. So they just get one delivered to them. And I just think that's very interesting. Can't necessarily do that with any other type of publishing, but I like to watch it. I like made.com. I like that whole kind of, you know, this is designer furniture, but it's the, you know, in the nick of time stuff. It's like, well, I'm only going to make it once everybody's decided they're going to buy it. It takes the gamble out of that manufacture, but it feels very authentic, and you're taking the gatekeepers of traditional retail out, so that's really interesting, I think. And also, I had this wonderful example told to me last week, and around, you know, essentially kind of Square, you know, the Square cash registers where you can turn your iPad into a cash register for a small business, but you can tie that into your analytics. So there's this ice cream parlor in New York, and rather than spend like $3,000 on a cash register, they've got an iPad and they've bought Square, and that's what they're using to process their payments. But the brilliant thing about it is that it connects into all of their they get lifetime analytics, you know, they get data about what they're selling. So they know, and their whole USP is they make their ice cream that day. And they know that between 3 and 5, they really only sell chocolate. So now they only make chocolate there, so they have no kind of stock risk, you know. And so for a perishable goods company, they're moving so quickly that they can make sure that they never have any waste. So for a company that has to pulp books, that's very, very attractive to me.